Hello YouTube, hello to my Rumble users here. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of a rant that I need to get out of my chest here. 2 months ago, my mom bought a chicken coop. So she thought that taking care of a chicken coop was way less expensive than buying the cost of more expensive eggs. The problem with this is that it can cost up to hundreds and thousands of dollars per year to try to take care of them compared to just buying a bunch of expensive eggs at the store. What I mean by that is that an issue is that I have to deal with the rat population. In order to protect the chickens, my dad, who built the cage for these chickens, forced me to dexter the rats. Not to chop the rats, but to actually have to empty them carefully into a biohazard bag. I'm essentially forced to do a responsibility of having to clean them up. Unlike driving, cleaning up the house, washing the dishes, or making my bed, having to take care of dead rats is something that is risky, and it does pose risks even if we are safe. What I mean by that is that after a few days of having to make sure that these rats are thrown away using a biohazard bag, I raised concerns to my dad that the rat population and that 2 traps are not enough to take care of it. Some will still eventually pass and make it into the chicken cage. That we need to find better ways to deal with the rat population. Right? The truth is, I told him I can still get infected if an ant bites me and gets onto my gloves while I'm taking care of the rats. I might end up being hospitalized, or if I end up breathing in one of the dangerous pathogens that come from the dead rat. The problem is, y'all, my dad called me a quote unquote pussy. One of the only times I'm ever gonna say this, y'all, because I'm usually very empathetic with the heart. But the problem is that my dad, who is unironically calling me a quote unquote pussy, is not the one who's throwing them away. He's not the one who's doing the risky job of having to actually remove them and throw them in the trash. The problem with this is that, y'all, my dad attempts to guilt trip me into saying that he's the one who bought all the materials for it, and he's calling me a lazy person for being hesitant on throwing the rats away. That's not lazy. That's just trying to be careful. My dad tries to guilt trip me even further, telling me to be thankful, to build a relationship with God. He's also telling me to be thankful that we have a roof under our heads. He's telling me that. The problem that I have with this, y'all, is that my dad here is using the guilt tripping method of telling me that we have a house, that we can afford this stuff. But the problem is, it's not about thankfulness in itself. I mean, obviously, everyone here, or some friends that are still with me now, everyone and their mom and dad, well, not my dad, but everyone and their own parents would agree that having to be thankful for having a roof under your home, having to be thankful that we can build a relationship with Jesus, having to be thankful for all of this, it's important. But the problem is, using that as a red herring argument to distract from the issue of the rat problem, that doesn't solve the issue of the rat problem, and that we need to find better ways. Building ourselves with Jesus, building ourselves through reading the Bible is important, but we must also find ways to take care of the rat problem, not use thankfulness as a sort of refuge to avoid accountability. The problem is, y'all, is that I was practically writing like John Locke here, an enlightenment philosophy. The reason is my dad also used another red herring telling me that his blood pressure is rising. The problem with this is that I was literally writing under pressure. Okay, that's probably not funny, but problem is my dad is using a red herring argument of thankfulness and being happy to avoid having to deal and engage with the rat problem, just as how to find better ways to take care of it. Enlightenment philosophers, y'all, John Locke always said that any power or government that fails to ensure the safety of the people must be revolted against. It must be challenged. What I'm beginning to realize here is that my dad, he has power, and because he's using it to hide against finding real ways, I must challenge his authority politely and respectfully, because having to take care of the rats is something that is dangerous. I hope you guys do understand my struggles, though. Alright, so there's a little bit of stuff that goes on at my home. Please, I know you guys might not relate with this, but please sympathize with me. I really need it.